The night my best friend debuted at the Met, Nolan locked me in our room. He was terrified the live stream would trigger another breakdown. Hearing the roaring applause from the tablet, I bit my lip until blood came. 5 years ago, the car crashed. I shielded him, but he shoved me aside to protect Rebecca. I had been safe. That push slammed me into a steel rebar that pierced both thighs. At 19, I became paralyzed from the pelvis down. 5 years of relentless phantom pain followed. A waking nightmare. Today, as the agony flared, I begged Nolan for relief. Still watching Rebecca on screen, he sneered. Hurts?
Go die. 5 years, and you still whine.
Do I look like a fool? He threw potassium chloride at me and pinned my wrists. Tonight is Rebecca's comeback. Must you ruin it with self-pity? Try it, I said. Push that and I'm gone in minutes.
His phone rang.
It was Rebecca. His glare melted as he stepped out to answer. I looked at the syringe. With my own hands, I ended what little hope remained and pressed the needle into my vein. He never meant to kill me, but I was truly finished with living. The moment the potassium chloride entered my bloodstream, I didn't feel immediate pain. Just a suffocating tightness in my chest, like an invisible hand slowly crushing my heart from the inside out. The syringe was completely empty, not a single drop left. I calmly pulled the needle out, twisted the safety cap back on, and dropped it into the medical sharps container. Inch by inch, I dragged my torso across the floor into the master bathroom. Outside the door, I could hear Nolan laughing on FaceTime with Rebecca. He praised her flawless routine. She playfully demanded he treat her to a late-night supper to celebrate. You guys go ahead.
I'll pass. She's having a bad day.
His voice was drenched in exhaustion. After the crash 5 years ago, Nolan turned down a prestigious fellowship. His mentor screamed at him over the phone for 40 minutes, calling him a waste of brilliant surgical talent. Nolan didn't argue back. He hung up and smoked an entire pack of cigarettes in the hospital hallway. Then he sold his downtown condo, moved us into a cramped 2,000-a-month apartment, and took endless graveyard shifts in the ER just to cover my medical bills. My vision started to tunnel. Using the last ounce of my strength, I fumbled through my wheelchair bag and pulled out a watch. A gift I always meant to give him, but never found the right moment. With a trembling hand, I scrawled 3 words on the bathroom mirror using my lipstick. Not your fault. The watch slipped from my grip, clattering against the tiles and rolling into a dark corner. My consciousness began to detach. The stained bathroom ceiling morphed into the starry dome of the Metropolitan Theater. I was standing in the center of the stage again, wearing that diamond-studded contemporary ballet costume with the flowing silk ribbons. My legs were long, powerful. I pushed off the tips of my toes and launched into a flawless triple pirouette. My final thought was terrifyingly clear. Nolan wouldn't have to work night shifts for my nerve meds anymore. His hands would stop trembling. Rebecca could finally stand by his side without guilt. Everyone was finally free. When my awareness reformed, I was floating near the bathroom ceiling. I looked down at myself, slumped against the edge of the bathtub, skin in ashen gray, lips tinted a deep purple. My arms were locked midair, forever frozen in a graceful ballet pose. The empty pant legs of my sweatpants draped pathetically over the tiles like discarded props. The front doorbell rang. I drifted out of the bathroom, passing right through the solid wood of the bedroom door. In the living room, Rebecca was walking in arm with Nolan's mother, beaming with pride. She was still wearing her silver stage costume, her makeup immaculate. She practically reeked of fresh roses and standing ovations. Eleanor patted Rebecca's hand, absolutely gushing. You were spectacular tonight. 3 standing ovations. Even the arts critics were raving about you. Rebecca offered a perfectly modest smile. I just followed the choreographer's vision. The instructors really guided me. Choreographer's vision? Those choreography notes for that specific solo were written by me. I spent 3 agonizing months staying up late in my wheelchair to perfect them. Arthur, Nolan's father, walked in behind them carrying an expensive bottle of 18-year-old Macallan. The whole family happily crowded into the kitchen to prep a celebration dinner. Nolan took charge of chopping the vegetables. Rebecca naturally stepped upright beside him to help. They moved in perfect sync. When she handed him the salt, her fingers brushed against his. Neither of them pulled away. Nolan paused his chopping. Rebecca, that final suspended leap with the ribbons tonight was beautiful. The power for that movement comes from the shoulder blades, not the wrists, right? Rebecca froze for a split second, then smiled and nodded. Floating near the ceiling, a phantom ache throbbed where my heart used to be. The secret behind that specific leap was something I taught all my students back in the day. Only Nolan remembered. Eleanor walked out of the kitchen carrying a fruit platter. She glanced at our closed bedroom door and scowled. Where is Avery? It's the biggest night of Rebecca's career, and she can't even come out to say congratulations? Nolan's knife stopped moving. We had a bit of an argument this afternoon.
She's resting.
Eleanor slammed the platter onto the dining table. Throwing a tantrum again? It's been 5 years. She screams about leg pain every single day. She doesn't even have legs anymore. What is there to hurt? You are a brilliant attending surgeon, and she's dragging you down so hard you can barely step into an operating room. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say, I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was dead. But the moment the words left my lips, they dissolved into nothingness. Arthur sighed, leaning back into the sofa with his whiskey glass. She used to be so glorious on stage. Remember when we sat in the front row for her opening night? Those were the days. Who could have known, honestly? It might have been a mercy if she had just passed away in that crush. Rebecca poured a cup of tea and handed it to Nolan, her voice soft and soothing. Don't let Eleanor's words get to you. She just cares about you. Avery's condition, it really is a heavy burden on everyone. She paused, dropping her voice to a whisper. When was the last time you actually smiled? Nolan stared at the cutting board. He swallowed hard but said nothing. Rebecca reached out and placed her hand over his. Nolan didn't pull away. Looking at them standing shoulder to shoulder in the warm, yellow light of the kitchen, an overwhelming sourness flooded my soul. But I smiled anyway. I could never give him this kind of warm, normal domestic life again. The celebration dinner officially began. In the center of the table sat a custom cake decorated with a sugar-sculpted ballerina wrapped in white ribbons. I wanted to get a closer look at the little figure. Just as my ghostly fingers reached out, Rebecca cheerfully sliced right through it. She scooped the figurine onto her plate and bit off one of its sugar ribbon arms. This is gorgeous. This pose is from my absolute favorite solo piece. Nolan's eyes locked onto the broken ribbon arm on her plate. His lips trembled slightly. Rebecca noticed his shift in mood. What's wrong? Is it too sweet? Nolan looked down. It's nothing. He picked up the broken piece of sugar ribbon, placed it on his own saucer, and left it untouched. I was stunned. Did he remember something? Before I could process it, Eleanor pulled a thick document from her designer purse and slapped it onto the dining table. I already got Avery's signature. I recognized that signature. It was my handwriting, but I never signed a divorce paper. Then it hit me. 2 months ago, my own mother visited me and asked me to sign some paperwork, claiming it was for transferring the deed to our old family house. That document had been a divorce settlement. Nolan picked up the papers, flipping through them page by page. Under the asset division section, it explicitly stated that I willingly forfeited all joint marital assets and future medical alimony. Rebecca spoke up right on cue, her tone gentle and persuasive. Nolan, signing this doesn't mean you're abandoning her. I can use all my performance bonuses to cover her physical therapy from now on. I just want you to start living your life again. Johns Hopkins still has that fellowship spot open for you. Arthur set his whiskey down. He looked at Nolan's visibly shaking hands. You know exactly what a surgeon's hands mean. If you keep living under this stress, you won't even be able to hold a suture needle. Nolan's hand hovered over the table, gripping a pen. He stared at that crooked, shaky signature for a long, long time. Suddenly he spoke. His voice was incredibly quiet. When she signed this, did she know what it was? The room went dead silent. Eleanor's expression shifted nervously. Rebecca immediately tried to smooth things over. Avery wants what's best for you too. She doesn't want to be a burden anymore, right, Eleanor? Eleanor nodded vigorously. She knows her own situation better than anyone. Nolan held the pen. The tip hovered over the signature line for 3 agonizing seconds. Floating right above his head, my non-existent heart clenched again. Finally, he put the pen down.
Let me think about it.
Eleanor's face darkened. She looked ready to explode, but Rebecca gently held her arm, giving her a warning look. After dinner, Nolan walked his parents to the door. Before stepping out, Eleanor turned back and hissed in a low voice. She's going to drag you into an early grave. Nolan said nothing and gently closed the door. He cleared the dining table alone. He folded the divorce settlement neatly and locked it deep inside a drawer in the TV console. When the living room fell completely silent, Nolan stood perfectly still for a long time. He walked into the kitchen and packed a thermal lunchbox, crab roe tofu, steamed base, and a small bowl of sweet silver ear mushroom soup he had simmered himself. He carried the tray to the bedroom door and knocked 3 times. Avery, are you asleep? Silence. He assumed I was still giving him the silent treatment. He pressed his forehead against the wooden door. His voice was incredibly soft.
I'm sorry.
I lost control of my temper this afternoon. That potassium chloride. I was out of my mind to do that. When I tossed that syringe at you, my hands were shaking so badly. A long, heavy silence. He lightly thumped his fist against the wood. When I drove past the theater today, the billboards were covered with Rebecca's face. But all I could think about was that it should have been you up there.
He sniffled.
I was reading a paper in the medical journal recently. It's about transcranial magnetic stimulation for phantom limb pain. The success rate is over 67%. I already contacted a specialized team in Boston. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to some screenshots, bent down, and slid them under the crack of the door.
Take a look.
I've studied the science behind it. The tech is solid. If you're just willing to try. His voice broke. He sounded like he was on the verge of crying. Can you please just give me a little more time? The bedroom answered with a deathly stillness. His phone alarm buzzed. It was a reminder for an emergency appendectomy he was covering for a colleague tonight. The extra overtime pay would cover my nerve block treatments for next week. He stood up, resting his head against the door one last time. I'll bring you your favorite raspberry tart tomorrow morning. On his way to the front door, he stopped by the TV console, yanked the drawer open, and pulled out the divorce papers. My soul held its breath. He stared at it for a few seconds, then ripped it to shreds and threw the pieces into the trash can. 10 minutes after Nolan left, the front door clicked unlocked. Rebecca walked in using her spare key. She marched straight to the bedroom door and slapped it hard 3 times. Avery, I know you're awake. Are you playing the victim game again? No answer. Rebecca frowned. Seriously? You're not even going to pretend to be polite? She twisted the doorknob.
Locked.
A cruel smile spread across her lips. Avery, do you know how pathetic you are? 5 years. 5 whole years, and Nolan still couldn't let you go. She leaned against the door. I thought you'd die after the accident. Honestly, I was disappointed when you survived. My ghost froze. Rebecca laughed softly. Do you know why I came tonight? Because I finally won. Her voice dripped with satisfaction. Your choreography, your spotlight, your career, your man. The bedroom remained silent. Aren't you curious how I got that solo? She lowered her voice. I stole your notebooks. My soul shook. The ones you left backstage years ago. All those movement analyses, all those concepts for ribbon work, all those little observations you scribbled in the margins. She chuckled. The critics called me a genius. Rage exploded inside me. You monster. But she couldn't hear me. The funny thing is, Nolan almost figured it out tonight. She sighed dramatically. Good thing he never sees what's right in front of him. Then she pulled a small velvet box from her purse. Inside was a diamond engagement ring. I wanted to show this to you personally. She held it up toward the door. After the divorce is finalized, he'll propose.
A pause.
I've waited long enough. The ring glittered under the hallway light. Then, a faint smell reached her nose. Rebecca wrinkled her brow. What is that smell? She sniffed again. Metallic.
Sharp. Wrong.
The smell of death. For the first time all evening, uncertainty flashed across her face. Avery? No answer. Avery, stop being ridiculous. She knocked harder. Avery, still nothing. The unease deepened. Rebecca stepped back and stared at the closed bedroom door. Then she noticed something. The thermal lunchbox, still sitting untouched on the floor. Cold. Exactly where Nolan had left it. A bad feeling crawled up her spine. She pulled out her phone and called Nolan. The call connected immediately. Nolan. What is it? His voice sounded distracted by hospital noise. Avery isn't answering. Silence. What do you mean? I mean she's not answering. Another pause. Then, did you check the bathroom? Rebecca walked toward the bedroom window. The curtains weren't fully closed. Through a narrow gap, she could see part of the ensuite bathroom. Just a tiny sliver. Nothing more. But it was enough. She saw a pale hand, completely motionless, lying beside the bathtub. The phone slipped from her fingers. Nolan. Her voice trembled. Nolan, I think something's wrong. The crash of a metal tray echoed through the phone. What did you see? The bathroom. Nolan. Nolan. The call disconnected. 22 minutes later, the apartment door burst open. Nolan sprinted inside, still wearing surgical scrubs. His face was white. Terrified. He slammed into the bedroom door. Avery. No response. The lock shattered under his shoulder. The door flew inward. For a moment, everything stopped. The lunchbox. The papers he had slid under the door. The silent room. Then he saw the bathroom.
Saw me.
Saw the lipstick message on the mirror. 3 words. Not your fault. The world seemed to collapse inside his eyes. Avery. His voice barely existed. He stumbled forward. Then noticed the skin color. The fixed pupils. The stiffness. Every piece of medical training he possessed instantly understood the truth.
Hours.
She had been dead for hours.
No.
He dropped to his knees.
No.
His hands shook violently as he reached for my wrist. Nothing. No pulse. No warmth. Nothing. And no. The sound that came out of him wasn't human. It was the sound of something breaking beyond repair. His gaze landed on the sharps container. Then the empty potassium chloride syringe. Recognition hit. His face drained completely. The syringe he had thrown. The one he never believed I would use. He crawled backward, as though trying to escape reality itself. Then his eyes found something else. The watch. Hidden in the corner. He picked it up with trembling fingers. The gift box opened. Inside was a small card. In my handwriting. Happy birthday, Nolan. Thank you for staying. The date on the card was from 3 years ago. 3 years. I had carried it around for 3 years waiting for the right moment. The watch slipped from his hand. A strangled sob escaped his throat. Then another. Then another. Soon he was on the floor clutching my lifeless body, while grief tore through him like a hurricane. Outside the bathroom door, Rebecca stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak, because for the first time in 5 years, she realized she had never beaten Avery. Not really. The dead woman in Nolan's arms had already won. And now she would haunt every remaining day of his life. The ruin came fast. 3 days after Avery's funeral, one of her former students released Avery's original choreography notebooks online. Every movement from Rebecca's celebrated comeback performance was there. Dated.
Signed.
Documented years before Rebecca ever stepped onto that stage. The backlash was immediate. Sponsors cut ties. The theater canceled her contract. Award committees launched reviews. Within weeks, Rebecca's career collapsed. Then things got worse. Avery's journals were released. In one entry, she described how Rebecca had repeatedly taken credit for her work after the accident. Former dancers and instructors came forward with their own stories. The public image Rebecca had carefully built shattered. No company wanted to associate with her. No theater wanted to hire her. No audience wanted to support her. The spotlight she loved so much disappeared. As for Eleanor, The truth about the forged divorce papers emerged during the investigation. Evidence showed she had worked with Avery's mother to deceive Avery into signing documents she didn't understand. The scandal destroyed her reputation. Friends stopped calling. Charity boards quietly removed her. The social circles she once dominated shut their doors. Even Arthur was disgusted. After years of enabling her cruelty, he finally filed for divorce. For the first time in her life, Eleanor found herself alone. And Avery's mother fared no better. Her relatives cut contact. Neighbors whispered whenever she appeared in public. The money and favors she had chased weren't enough to save her from the consequences. But Nolan's punishment was different. It wasn't public. It was permanent. While sorting through Avery's belongings, he discovered journal after journal. Not one blamed him. Not one cursed him. Every page worried about him instead. The final entry ended with, "I hope Nolan can be happy someday." That sentence destroyed what remained of him. His hands developed a constant tremor. He lost his ability to operate. The hospital revoked his surgical privileges. His career ended. One evening, he found the watch Avery had intended to give him. Inside was a note. "Thank you for staying with me." He sat on the floor and cried until sunrise. Rebecca tried contacting him afterward.
Blocked.
She wrote letters. Returned unopened. She waited outside his apartment. He walked past as if she didn't exist. The woman who spent years trying to replace Avery finally succeeded. Avery was gone. Yet Rebecca still lost. Because the only thing Nolan felt when he looked at her was disgust. Years later, Rebecca was forgotten. Eleanor lived alone and bitter. Avery's mother spent the rest of her life regretting choices she could never undo. And Nolan visited only one person. Every month, every year, a simple gravestone bearing Avery's name. He would place fresh flowers down and sit quietly beside her. No matter the weather, no matter how much time passed. Because some mistakes can never be fixed. And some regrets last longer than a lifetime.